Hey everybody, this is Charles from Premier Guitar, and we're here with the mighty, masterful, sometimes mellow Pete Anderson. What are you,
Killers.
what are you doing, man? What is this thing you're playing?
Just in general. Oh well, I discovered this guy Henry who lives in Arizona, and my career was based off blackface, the blackface world, and I had a blackface deluxe. And in the early days, I toured with Dwight Yoakam, and I had this blackface deluxe, and I kept building it and modding it. And most of the boutique guys don't concentrate A on clean sounds and B on blackface. So, and if they do, some of them, the majority of them are kind of rigid in their design. They sort of, for marketing purposes, design it one way, and they want you to say, obviously I like it, but I would like it to do this and that. And I go, I don't do that. And so when I found Henry, he was willing to. He's got such a wide menu of stuff that he does in the blackface, the tweed world. He does all the other stuff. I'm not interested in it, but like the EL34s and the soft tubes. But he's so good at understanding the schematics of whatever I ask him that I'm doing. So we're designing an amp together specifically to fit my needs, which would be a three-stage amp that will have a blackface, but it's not just a blackface. It's one that I had for many years. It had a lot of work done to it, so it had a lot of power increases for what I was doing. So it'll be my blackface on one side, and then the second section, which usually in most of the amps that I've been working with has a tweed, he'll have a silver tone, which is like the 14, is it the 1482? Yeah, and that's that little square one with the diamond and the knobs go down the side, and that's like the killer, Robert Nighthawk, Johnny Shines, that Chicago sound, and I use that mostly for slide. And then he does his own little kind of overdrive section. Everybody's chasing the Dumble thing, but he does his own kind of softer overdrive. So, and he can put reverb, he can put tremolo. If you ask him about the brown tremolo, the tree tube tremolo, the black tremolo, for somebody who's been his whole career, my career has been pretty much Fender. He understands everything I'm talking about, so it's a real menu for me to be able to, work with them. And so we're designing an amp that's going to be pretty much for me, the one-stop shop.
Cool, killer. Henry, get over here.
And that's really what it's going to look like. That
Yeah.
amp in the corner there. That's has a blackface channel, a tweed channel, and an overdrive. But like he said, when we get done, it'll be exactly the Pete Anderson amp, and it'll have his name on it and be a signature model for him. And as you notice, these little amps down here, those are all signature models. Chuck DeLoya has one. Kirk Fletcher has one. That's what you just heard. The little guy over there is like what Ronnie Baker Brooks or Kid Anderson uses. And this is a nice series for us. It's 40 watts in a little tiny package. So it's grab and go. Guys that live in like San Francisco and New York, where you can't park next to the gig or you got to ride on a bus or whatever, and yet they need a full range, like a super reverb kind of sound, and they walk in with these little boxes and people go, what are you going to do with that little thing? And as soon as they play, everybody wants to play through that amp because it sounds huge. And you'll get to hear Chuck DeLoya play through his in a second.
Pete summed it up. I mean, Henry is covering all the aspects of the boutique world that a lot of the companies aren't. Everyone's zooming in on the Dumble thing, and I think there's so many ways to get an overdrive tone, a good overdrive tone. There's a lot of ways to approach it, and the whole clean part, the blackface clean. Like Pete, I come from 30 years of playing Fender blackface, and when I was using the Dumble style amps, I got used to them sort of, and the overdrive is great and everything. But I played a gig one night with a blackface deluxe, and it blew my mind. I said, man, I forgot all about this, So the next thing I'm talking to my friend Dave, and the next thing that happens, Dave is talking to Henry. Dave grew up with Henry, and the next thing we have this amp, to sum it up. And what's happening here is in a little bit bigger than a Champ size cabinet, I have this huge sounding amp. I mean, I'm not going to turn it up here because we're going to blow the place apart. But we have a blackface style amp that with control over the mids, right? So there's different scoop in the mids. There's 6 different ways to set it. So depending on the room you're in, you can dial it in. clean thing. Now there's ways to overdrive it with the master. There's a built-in loop, so it's like works like a dumbulator. You can use the volume, or you can use the master as gain stages. So you can bypass the tone stack and get this thing to honk. It's rocking, right? Or you can just use a pedal. Like I have a Zen Drive hooked up here, and you can set it up as a clean platform with pedals, or you can do this. You first get rid of the tone stack, and now we're into from the amp.
That's no overdrive at all, right?
That's the amp.
And you're still on 2.5.
Master is on. I'm on 2.5. The master's up. So we can do the same thing. We can roll the master back to 2.5. Put the volume up. It's a different character.
Yeah.
Henry tells me it's a more Dumble character with the master, with the gain from the master. It's ridiculous, you know. So then you can also bypass the presence, and now everything's out. All we have is volume, master, and we have this
Yeah, if we wanted
mid-range
to do the real
thing.
rumble thing, we just put that max, we turn that way down.
Just a huge sound, you know. It's a huge sound from this tiny cabinet.
Remind folks how many watts this is.
This is 40 watts. It has two 6L6s. You can make it 18 watts with two 6V6s. It's cathode bias, no nothing. Change the tubes, you're done. Boom.
That's a lot of amp in a little box.
Sure is. And the other part, I think, because of the typical nature of these small cabinets, they sound boxy. You know, like the old. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's they sound boxy. And what Henry did is experiment with that back until it didn't. It's like chop it up, chop some more, chop it, stop. When it's right. So now we have this huge sound. You can hear it in the room here. I don't know if it'll translate, but it's just like, it's crazy. So we have an amp on, and then the mid thing is goes all the way from I'm going to do the Pete Anderson, but he showed me. Check this out. From a real country, like twangy, kind of deal. Did I do it right, Pete?
I think so.
Yeah, sweet.
From there to that real fat overdrive thing. This is for just the amp. Gotta do one more thing. We gotta bypass that, and this is just the amp.
All right. Henry, you got anything more to say about all this?
Well, yeah,
I'd rather just play.
we're all excited about these little amps, but we actually make a lot of big amps. We have a bass amp offering now. It's 160 watt true bass. We have Black Verbs. This is our flagship model. It's a blackface channel with a Dumble overdrive, reverb, and an effects loop. So we call that the Swiss Army knife because there's no sound you can't get with it. Comes in a very small combo, so you can go out and do your club gigs, imitate anybody for top 40 playing. Another flagship of ours is the Magic Dust. It's a tweed front end with a couple of Dumble style overdrives. The geeks would call this a non-HRM and an HRM overdrive. So that's a really popular model for us. If a guy wants that same amp but with a blackface front end, we have the open range. Blackface front end, both overdrive channels, and a fully buffered effects loop. And then the new product we have for this show here is the Redplate, which is kind of a play on our factory name. And the Redplate gives you a JCM 800 as a low gain channel and a Soldano type as a overdrive channel, high gain channel. And like all red plates, you can stack the two channels together. So you can have your JCM 800 feeding a Soldano, which is a tone that shredders have never heard before. And then in addition, we have a dedicated clean channel so they can do their clean intros. So this is a new amp for us. And of course, we're demoing it with a Marshall cab, so the guys are familiar territory. But that's kind of our whole lineup. Between the Pete Anderson two-channel amp, the little guys, the Black Verb, which is a Swiss Army knife, and then the Magic Dust, the open range, and the Shred. The only amp we didn't cover is on the other side of Pete over there is a Nashville amp called a True Verb. And it was meant to take on the classic Fender twin reverb in a lighter package, more headroom, cleaner, a lot more adjustment on the tones, and we're hoping to get some country artists doing that. I have a few good ones now. So
Yeah, it looks.
that's
You got a
the
couple.
lineup.
Hey man, do you sleep?
Never.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Me neither. All right, cool.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot for doing the interview, guys. We appreciate it. We'll be looking at our next Premier Guitar issue to see how it came out.
Where do people hunt you down?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah,
And,
but on the
we're
World Wide
the
Web.
At redplateamps.com.
All right, Pete. Thanks, man. Chuck, thanks.
Good job.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
this is Charles for Premier Guitar.